Welcome, everyone. I am absolutely thrilled to have you here for today's explainer. We are diving straight into the incredibly fascinating internal world of 3 to 5-year-olds. Seriously, it's a time of explosive growth, huge, big feelings, and just incredible milestones. So let's jump right in and break it all down together.
To guide our learning today, we're going to anchor ourselves to one really essential question. How do preschoolers piece together their own unique self-portraits while also trying to figure out all those family and societal expectations? And this is the beautiful part. How do we as adults serve as mirrors for a child's developing self-awareness and socializing? Just think about that for a second. Think of yourself as a literal mirror. What you reflect back to a child profoundly shapes exactly who they become.
So, here is our roadmap for today. We're going to cover building a unique self-concept, the power of initiative, learning right from wrong, navigating big feelings, coping with preschooler stress, and finally, guiding social-emotional growth. Let's get going.
Starting off with Section 1, building a unique self-concept, the internal mind.
You know, during these vital, foundational years of self-construction, a child's self-concept is highly cumulative. It's kind of like a giant puzzle. A child first develops self-recognition. Then comes self-definition. This eventually builds right into self-esteem, and finally, self-correction. Every single interaction you have with them actually feeds right into these 4 components to solidify their central identity. It's absolutely crucial.
Now, a major part of building this self-concept involves learning gender roles, which eventually progresses to what we call gender constancy. Basically, this is the solid, internal understanding that external things, clothing, hairstyles, or actions, they don't actually change a person's gender. Now, we've got to be super careful to contrast this with sexual stereotyping. That's when society wrongly dictates that men and women must always behave in certain ways or only do particular tasks. True gender constancy actually frees a child from those rigid stereotypes.
Moving on to Section 2, the power of initiative, testing boundaries.
This brings us right to Erik Erikson's 3rd stage of personality development. And here, we really want to foster initiative. That's the bold ability to think or act without being urged, just jumping in and doing it. But the counterweight here is guilt. So, if a preschooler tries to pour their own milk, spills it everywhere, and is met with a harsh reprimand, well, that initiative is instantly crushed by a hindering sense of guilt. So our job is to nurture that spark of initiative while treating mistakes as, well, just learning moments, not total defeats.
All right, Section 3, learning right from wrong, moral development.
So as kids are testing all those boundaries and inevitably making mistakes along the way, they are actively building moral character. Basically, learning to act in accordance with what is perceived as morally right. And listen, we do not build this character by shaming a child. No way. Shaming actually creates a terrifying loss of a child's basic sense of security. Instead, we build moral character by clearly explaining the reasoning behind why certain behaviors are acceptable or unacceptable. We have to sit down and explain how an unacceptable behavior actually damages other people. And honestly, most importantly, we just have to model those good actions ourselves.
This leads us to Section 4, navigating big feelings, empathy for the turbulent years. Let's be real, preschoolers are juggling an absolute whirlwind of emotions. We're talking deep love, emotional dependency, new intense fears, and even some repressed jealousy as they suddenly realized, wait a minute, I have to share my world? As they navigate all this emotional turbulence, we absolutely must teach them a vital distinction. Being aggressive involves harmful physical or verbal actions, and that is just flat out unacceptable. But being assertive, now that is speaking out, standing up for your rights, and defending yourself. We can firmly insist that aggression is completely off the table, while simultaneously empowering these kids to confidently advocate for their needs through assertiveness.
So let's look at how this social-emotional growth actually builds chronologically. At 3 years old, a child is highly dependent on that caregiver mirror we talked about. They are constantly seeking adult attention and approval. But right around 4 years old, there's a major shift. They start seeking attention from their friends more than from adults. Although, heads up, they might still express their anger by yelling. Then, by 5, it's pretty much a whole new world. They are playing with best friends, they're cooperating, and they even begin to follow rules fairly. It is such a beautiful transition from depending entirely on adults to actively interacting with their own peers.
Moving into Section 5, coping with preschooler stress, recognizing the triggers.
You know, children experience long-lasting stressors just like we do. It usually stems from 2 main areas.
First, you have developmental stress. This is related to their own growth, an illness, or maybe just a fearful temperament. Second, there's environmental stress. This comes from outside changes, like moving homes or maybe a new baby arriving. But really pay attention to this last point: caregiver stress spillover. Listen, children are literal emotional sponges. Our own unmanaged adult stress so easily bleeds right into their environment.
Speaking of environmental factors, think about this sharp number for a second: 1 hour. That is the absolute maximum recommended daily screen time for children under the age of 5. Technology just has a massive impact on their development. If we really want them to learn healthy emotional regulation, instead of, just relying on digital pacifiers, we've got to actively limit their screen time. And of course, we need to demonstrate proper technology use ourselves.
Which brings us to our final section, Section 6, Guiding Social-Emotional Growth, the Adult's Role. So, what does this all mean for us? How do we step into our role as empathetic guides, limit setters, and conflict resolvers? Well, one of the most rewarding parts of all this is fostering altruistic behaviors. You know, those incredibly sweet moments when a child shows genuine concern for others without expecting any kind of reward in return. But we don't just sit back and hope this happens. Actually, we kind of engineer it. We purposefully make time for friendships in their schedules. We explicitly teach conflict resolution. And bonus, doing that drastically reduces tattling. Because let's face it, tattling is usually just a misguided attempt to get another child in trouble. Now, of course, this is a delicate balancing act. We have to promote their healthy self-concept by giving them the total freedom to try and, yes, to fail, but we have to simultaneously set reasonable limits. Kids, as you know, often act purely on impulse, so when they cross a line, we explain exactly why those unacceptable behaviors hurt others. And if they fail to obey those boundaries, the result should always be loving yet firm discipline, never ever shame. Ultimately, firm limits are what actually keep them feeling safe and genuinely secure.
And because they are literally always watching us, we absolutely must model healthy stress management. This means actively identifying the source of your own stress and then finding positive distractions. It means expressing your own emotions constructively and, above all, avoiding angry or frustrated outbursts. Remember what we just said about stress spillover? Children are constantly observing our reactions to figure out how they should manage their own anxieties. So if we scream when we're frustrated, well, they're going to do it too. But if we take a deep breath, they learn to do the exact same thing.
Which brings us right back to where we started. I want to leave you today with a final thought to mull over. As a mirror to the preschoolers in your life, what reflection are you showing them today? Are you reflecting patience, assertiveness, and altruism? Every single interaction is a chance to thoughtfully guide the incredible minds of the children you care for. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. Keep learning, keep reflecting the good, and I'll see you all next time.